Before we start, just want to give thoughts and prayers. I know those don't really do anything anymore, but my hometown, Coral Springs / Parkland, Florida, the school I went to for 4 years, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, had a pretty bad tragedy that I'm pretty sure all you guys have heard of. And the students in the city that we live in, or I used to live in, I'm in college now, but that basically my home is taking action. And just wanted to give a quick shout out. I mean, everyone already has, and hopefully everyone back home is doing all right. And I'm so sorry to all the families and the 17 students and the 17 people that died, including an athletic director that I knew and our assistant football coach that was always giving students to rides on his golf cart when they're late for class, including myself. And just, it sucks. And hopefully one day things will change. The Daytona 500, I've waited so long for this day, and it did not disappoint. This is February 18th, 2018, 17 years after the death of Dale Earnhardt, and 20 years after Dale Earnhardt's first win in the Daytona 500. And it's a lot of meanings that end up coming to fruition at the end. However, as it seems to be with everything nowadays, and whatever we talk about, there will be controversy with it, and that's why I'm here. Guys, comment down below. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. Also, follow me on Twitter, because that's where I do most of my race tweets anyways. And let's go.
Drivers, start your engine!
It was odd seeing Dale Earnhardt Jr. giving the command to start the engines, but that was... I don't know. I'm not going to get used to that. The beginning of the race was pretty hectic, obviously, when you have 40 cars. First time 40 cars on the track at the same time. Everyone's racing really hard. And during pit stops, actually, Denny Hamlin had a pit road penalty for being serviced outside of his box. That was actually a one-lap penalty. So that was going to be a pretty big deal. Denny Hamlin gets the one-lap penalty. He goes to the back, and he has to work the rest of the race to get that lap back. As well as Kyle Busch with a left rear tire down. This was his second left rear tire getting cut. And he's basically out of the Daytona 500 because of something in the suspension. When you have two left rear tires go down, it's not a coincidence. There is something in the setup of the car that is wrong. At the end of stage one, you had your normal aggressive guys up towards the front. Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano, Chase Elliott, Brad Keselowski. Those really are the four most aggressive guys I could think of when it comes to restrictor plate racing, and they were all up there towards the front. Chase Elliott putting on some questionable blocks, to say the least, at the beginning of the race, especially one on Joey Logano going through the tri-oval that I thought they would just wreck. I really did, and that was way too early in the race to be doing that, but that's what you have to do, and you would see that come to fruition at the end of the race, and we'll get to that. But these guys are racing so aggressively. And at the end of stage one, we have this incident with Stenhouse trying to block, gets a little bit loose. Eric Jones going through a hole that isn't there, causing a huge wreck with Daniel Suarez going head on to the wall. Jimmy Johnson, William Byron also involved. William Byron actually didn't get that much damage, and it was a huge wreck. They didn't take too many cars, but some big contenders like Jimmy Johnson, like Daniel Suarez, like Eric Jones, those guys are out of the race. And this is one heck of a view. For you guys that don't watch NASCAR often, watch this.
Wow. That was violent.
Now you know what it's like to wreck at Daytona going into turn 3.
Obviously, this isn't a joke. When you're going 200 miles per hour and you go head on into a wall, we ain't playing no games. This is life. Well, that was the end of stage one. So we move on to stage two, and the racing didn't really change. People were still racing hard, which was expected. Most times during Daytona 500, the first 100 laps are pretty hard racing. And as we get to the end of the middle of stage two, you would see a wreck between Chase Elliott, Brad Keselowski, and that would cause another huge one with Chase Elliott going head on into the wall, and it's just, that hurts to watch. If we look back at it, you can see here Keselowski's making a move. Chase Elliott's kind of making the same move. He's trying to keep Keselowski in his mirror, and they look square, but the problem is a one little tap, and it just gets the car light. When you enter the corners, that's really the most the place where the car tends to get light, and Chase Elliott just loses control of it, gets into Keselowski, and like I said, hard hit into the outside wall. It does some 360s. Unfortunately, Danica Patrick was also involved. Now, this was her last race, for those of you who don't know, but this was her last race in NASCAR. And to be honest, it kind of ended up being what most of her career in NASCAR was, which is a wrecked race car. So it's unfortunate. Thank you, Danica, for everything you've done for the sport. But I mean, that's how the career's gone in NASCAR. It hasn't been anything special. It's been very underwhelming. She had high expectations and didn't really live up to any of them. And ends up with another wrecked race car. So that's Danica Patrick's NASCAR career. And this would also leave Chase Elliott and Brad Keselowski out of the race. Now, those two are obviously two of the most aggressive plate drivers and two of the best as well. And with those two out of the race, you would see throughout the end that was the end of stage 2, and you would see throughout that basically the racing would kind of calm down. At the end of stage 2, they were basically running single file for a while, and then heading into the last 80 laps of the race, it was a lot of single file. Most of the time in Daytona 500s, the first 100 laps are really aggressive. It takes about a wreck or two to get the field to calm down, and especially with this package, the way the cars are so light when you could side draft them in the air moving, it looks like everyone decided to, chill for a little bit, run in line, because there weren't that many cars left, about, I would say, 20 on the lead lap, 20 without damage. So from lap 100 to 150, nothing really happening. Green flag pit stops. Joey Logano would get a speeding penalty that basically put him out of the race with around 30 to go. Ryan Blaney was leading most of the way, dominating the race, doing an excellent job like he always does. With 10 to go, William Byron would spin out and cause a caution. Now, William Byron did have a tough race, scraping the wall, getting involved in wrecks, so not the best race in the 24 car, but he'll eventually get there, and this is his rookie season, so don't expect much. He still needs to learn a lot. But then the race would get crazy with 10 to go. Block after block after block after run after block after run. It was crazy. For about 8 laps to go to the time, another big wreck would happen where it looks like Ryan Blaney gets a little bit close to Kurt Busch in that area where the air is very vulnerable, and Kurt Busch gets turned around and takes out a lot of good cars, including Blaney and including Kurt Busch and all the guys involved. I mean, that's the concept of plate racing that is now. You have to block to win, but it's so easy to do it wrong that you'll wreck. So it's questionable. Do we keep this plate package? Does it create exciting racing? Yes. Is it dangerous? Yes. It's up to the fans, honestly. Now, the end of the race was huge. You had Denny Hamlin with Eric Almirola on his outside. Chris Buescher was in 3rd, and Austin Dillon was in 4th. Now, I was surprised Denny Hamlin took the inside, mainly, and not because the outside is where you can really get a lot of runs, but because Chris Buescher was behind him. I did not see Chris Buescher most of the race. I didn't know what kind of speed he had, and that would cause Denny Hamlin problems. On the restart, Denny Hamlin couldn't get a push. He couldn't get Chris Buescher from the entrance to turn 1 and off. He couldn't get Chris Buescher to get on his bumper, and Austin Dillon, who's a noticeably faster car than Chris Buescher, was able to get Eric Almirola out in front. I think that's where Denny Hamlin lost the race. Now, here comes the controversy. Now, we knew by the entire time the race was going on, you knew that a block would probably win the race. You would have to be in the lead, and you would have to block. Now, if we look at this footage, we're going down the back straightaway with Eric Almirola and Austin Dillon. Eric Almirola does kind of like a fake block where Austin Dillon wants Eric Almirola to think he's going low. Eric Almirola doesn't bite, so Austin Dillon gets back in line. And if you look closely, Eric Almirola doesn't move his line. And this is the problem. Because the controversy that comes is Eric Almirola actually didn't block. He held his line because Austin Dillon thought, I'm going to fake him out. I'm going to go low and then get to that high lane, because that's what we saw most of the race. You wanted to get to the outside of the driver, so you'd fake low and go high. And that's what the aggressive drivers are really good at. Eric Almirola didn't bite. He guessed. He guessed correctly. He guessed that Austin Dillon would try to fake him out because Austin Dillon did not want to go to the bottom since he'd be susceptible to the side draft, and he tried going back to the outside. Once Eric Almirola guessed that right and Austin Dillon was on his bumper, Austin Dillon then moves to the right and hooks Eric Almirola into the wall. If you guys know about iRacing, it's happened to me the last 5 times in iRacing, but this is real life. This is, we can't, compare a simulator to real life. And here, Eric Almirola did not move his line. Could he have tried blocking Austin Dillon up high? I guess, but he's already hooked. So if Austin Dillon wants to make that move to the right, he can't still be on the bumper. That's the problem. Austin Dillon was still on the bumper. You got to create enough room to where you get to the outside, and then if Eric Almirola comes up, that's not your fault. But it looks like to me, in my opinion, you guys can comment down below, but in my opinion, Eric Almirola did not move his line. He guessed that Austin Dillon would fake him out, and Austin Dillon went to the right, hooked Eric Almirola, and turned left. Now, that would allow Austin Dillon to continue on without getting wrecked, because let's say if Austin Dillon was to the outside of Eric Almirola, let's say Austin Dillon was here and Eric Almirola came up, Austin Dillon most likely would not get away from that. He would get put in the wall as well with Eric Almirola. In this case, Austin Dillon comes up, Eric Almirola doesn't really move. There's the hook. Eric Almirola is still not moving, and Austin Dillon turns left to avoid Eric Almirola getting in front. Now, like I said, you guys comment down below and let me know what you think. In my opinion, I'm very happy Austin Dillon wins the race. It's incredible. It's storybook. 17 years after the death of Dale Earnhardt, 20 years after Dale Earnhardt won the race, to see the 3-car back in victory lane. And shout out to Bubba Wallace for finishing second in the 43 car. He ran an excellent race. I was hoping he'd probably win that one, or Ryan Blaney. But the way it happened is hard. It's hard to take, because Austin Dillon knows he's wrong. It sounds like that from his post-race interview. He knew that he had to stay on the gas and he had to do this and that to win the race. I think there could have been a better way to do it. Me personally, I think he had such a big run that if he would have just went low and side drafted Eric Almirola, he would have cleared him. In my opinion, I think he would have cleared him by the time they entered turn 3. And then at that point, he just blocked for half a lap. So it's really hard to say. It's very controversial. I think a lot of fans are going to have a problem with it, which is not surprising, because Dale Earnhardt would actually wreck a lot of people for the win. So it is similar. I'm not comparing Austin Dillon to Dale Earnhardt. Please don't mix up my words. They're not even close to being the same driver. But I don't know, guys. It's very controversial. It was one heck of a Daytona 500 with a lot of wrecked race cars. And I actually don't have the results in front of me, but I'll put them up there. All I know is that I think Denny Hamlin finished 3rd. I think Bubba finished 2nd, and Austin Dillon won the race. That's really all I know. I don't know the rest of the results right now. So it's insane. It's the end of the race gives me a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth, because I wanted to see a clean run to the finish. We didn't get that, but I don't know. Like I said, congrats to Austin Dillon. He deserves the win. He did what he had to do, and he won the Daytona 500. No one can take that away from him. He won the Daytona 500 in the 3-car nonetheless, and he's most likely, I know this doesn't really matter at the moment, but he's most likely in the playoffs as well, and he's going to be a Daytona 500 champion for the rest of his life. So the way he did it will be controversial in my opinion, but we'll see how it goes. And I'm so sorry to Eric Almirola. I mean, the guy broke his back literally last year, was out of a race car, gets a huge break to get into the number 10 with Stuart Haas. Me personally, I thought I would have put Kenseth in there, but Eric Almirola gets the ride. He gets his shot. That's all drivers look for. They want an opportunity to prove themselves. And now Eric Almirola in a championship winning car, or a championship caliber car, can win. And he was leading on the white flag of the Daytona 500 after overcoming all the adversity he went through last year. And to not make a wrong move, that's what sucks. If Eric Almirola blocks and gets turned because of blocking, that's understandable. That's the risk you take with this plate racing. But he didn't block. He didn't make a wrong move. He got turned. Let's call it like it is. He got turns for the Daytona 500 win. And that sometimes is hard to swallow. You can't sugarcoat it or any other way. You can't say, oh, it was bad luck. No, Austin Dillon kept his foot in it and turned Eric Almirola, and it gave Austin Dillon the win to the Daytona 500. We can't sugarcoat that. That's really what happened. Well, it's not fact. I mean, but in my opinion, it's what happened. And, that's just how it is sometimes. And I feel terrible for Eric Almirola, just to go head on into the wall like that. On the last lap, it sucks. Guys, like I said, like the video, subscribe if you're new, comment down below. Another Daytona 500 has come and gone. Follow me on Twitter if you want, at RealRadman, and I'll see you guys next week for Atlanta, and hopefully you're all having a great day, and congrats to Austin Dillon, the 3 cars back in victory lane. Peace out.
I can't change, even if I tried, even if I wanted to, and I can't change, even if I tried. My love, she keeps me warm.